A shrill ringing of your phone jolts you awake. Your friend, the best detective in the city, is on the line. I don't have time to explain. I'm leaving the city in 20 minutes. You'll have to replace me for the next week or two. Don't try to contact me. As he hangs up, you're left sitting on your bed, the phone in your hand, staring into the darkness of your room. You have to deal with your first case already in the morning. An anxious man rushes into your friend's office. I work as a cashier in a clothing store. Last night, I was the one to lock it up. As I was counting the money, the room suddenly went dark. There was some problem with the light bulb. I climbed the table and grabbed it, but by doing it, I burned my hand, jerked it back, fell to the floor, and lost consciousness. When I came to my senses, the money was gone. You examine the room attentively and realize the man is lying. What makes you think so? The light bulb the cashier told you about is an LED one. Such light bulbs don't get hot. Your first real case makes you hungry. You go to the nearest restaurant to get something to eat. But as soon as you enter, you hear loud, angry voices. A waitress and a visitor are arguing. You also ordered chicken wings, and you have to pay for this dish. It's the waitress. The visitor looks tired and sleepy. But I didn't. I haven't been here longer than an hour. Yes, I did doze off, but it doesn't mean I don't remember my order. You can't help but step in. You know very well that this man couldn't have ordered chicken wings, you say. How did you figure it out? You spotted a note on the wall. It says, "The kitchen works till 1 p.m. today." It's now 3 p.m. The man claims he's been there for an hour, which means he came well after the kitchen was closed. After the accident, you decide to have a meal at another cafe. But as you come closer, you see a crying lady. I was going to cross the road when some woman grabbed my purse and disappeared. I noticed her enter this cafe. Can you help me get my things back? You enter the cafe. Ah, that's my purse, right between those two women. But I can't recognize the one who took it. I didn't have time to look at her attentively. You don't need much time to figure out which woman is guilty. It's the one on the left. The woman on the right has her left arm in a cast. If she had taken the purse, she'd have put it on the right side of herself. After such an eventful day, you're exhausted. You fall asleep as soon as your head touches the pillow. But you get woken up just a few hours later. Another day, another case.
Oh, you're finally here.
A man tied to a chair looks happy.
Someone broke into my house this night, tied me, and stole all our valuables. Our mailman came early in the morning to deliver newspapers. He must have heard me shouting for help and called the police. Luckily, all our stuff was insured. But I hope to deal with this problem before my wife finds out about this.
You arrest the man for attempting insurance fraud. Why? You paid attention that the newspapers were on the table in the hall, not lying on the floor near the mail slot. Someone must have put them there. It could only be the house owner or his wife, who was an accomplice. After the police arrive, you leave the man's house and immediately receive a new call. Mrs. Smith claims that her neighbor, Mrs. Miller, has stolen her laundry. The woman says she hung the laundry in her backyard at 10 a.m. And when she went out of the house 2 hours later, she saw Mrs. Miller putting it in her bag.
I didn't do this. It's a lie.
The other woman looks angry. You look around and ask Mrs. Smith to go to the police station with you for trying to slander her neighbor. How did you figure out that Mrs. Smith was lying? It's freezing outside, and there's snow on the roofs. In 2 hours, damp laundry would be so frozen, it'd be impossible to fold it and put it in a bag. Your phone rings again. It's a woman who works at a museum.
You must help me,
she cries. When you arrive at the museum, she tells you her story.
Yesterday, I stayed late at work. I needed to prepare some documents. I was sitting at this table. The overhead lights were off, and the only source of light was my desk lamp. I was listening to music when suddenly I saw a shadow to the right of the table. I realized it was a person jumping out of the open window. I immediately switched on the overhead lights and discovered that an ancient vase I kept in my office was gone. This vase cost hundreds of thousands of dollars.
You didn't believe this story. Why? If the only source of light had been a desk lamp standing in front of the woman, she wouldn't have noticed a shadow to the right of the table. It turns out that before leaving, your detective friend gave your contacts to all his acquaintances. And now, one of them needs your help. You arrive at his jewelry store. A client came there several hours ago, planning to buy an expensive diamond ring for his wife. But someone stole his wallet right in the store. The manager, he was the one to call you, asked all the visitors who were inside at that time to stay until your arrival. You look at all these people attentively. Soon you know who took the wallet. It's the man in the middle. He has a bandage on his right arm, but it's wrapped over the sleeve of his jacket, not hidden under it, like a real bandage would be. You knock on a sturdy brown door, while a woman with a bandage on her head stands next to you. A man opens the door. "Excuse me," you say. "A pot plant fell out of your window an hour ago and hit this woman on her head. I had to take her to the hospital. She's okay now, but you need to compensate this woman for the damage. May we come in?" The man turns pale, but lets you in.
It can't be true. Our windows were closed because we've just returned home. I literally entered my apartment 2 minutes before you came.
You realize this man is lying and call the police. How did you figure it out? You spotted a pan with boiling water in the kitchen. If the man had indeed come home just a few minutes ago, the water wouldn't have had enough time to start boiling. Now, it's your friend who needs help. She owns a grocery store. A gust of wind blew a $100 bill out of her hands, and the money seems to have vanished into thin air. Your friend thinks it was one of the customers who took the bill, but no one wants to admit stealing the money. You ask all visitors to go to your friend's office when a woman speaks up.
It's incredible to be accused of theft. Here, you can check my bags right now.
Please, just come with me to the office. We'll figure it out there, you say. After the woman refuses to follow you, you call the police. Why? The woman is standing on the $100 bill. If she follows you, everyone will see the money. The next morning, rainy and gloomy, you get your next case. To investigate it, you need to visit the office of a large international company. Rebecca, the girl who called you, works there. She says, "I've just come back from brunch and discovered that someone had knocked our HR manager out just an hour ago." You question the people who were in the office at that time. Laura is an applicant. She says she was a bit angry with the HR manager. He made her wait well past her appointment time.
"And still,"
the girl says,
"I would never hit another person. I'm also too weak to do it."
Gary, who works in the marketing department, claims he hasn't seen the HR manager since he arrived at work. He was in a meeting from the very morning till lunchtime. Jacob from research and development tells you he rode his bike to a coffee shop to get his cappuccino. He's just come back. You immediately realize who hit the HR manager. It was Jacob. Both his bike and his clothes are dry and clean. How is that possible if it's raining outside? You leave Rebecca's office and hear your phone beeping. You see a text with an address you don't know. You drive there. A man meets you at the door of a large building. He's shaking. When you enter a large dark hall, you see 2 containers filled with transparent liquid. 2 women are floating inside. They look identical.
"One of them is my wife, but I can't figure out which one, and I'm allowed to open only one container."
You walk around the women and examine them. Then you point at one of them. That's your wife. How did you figure it out? The man's name is Mark. It's written on his biker jacket. His wife is the woman with the letter M tattooed on her arm. Your phone beeps again. You look at it and see a message. It's from your detective friend. There's just one word on the screen. Help! But that's already another story.
Jordan was very late for a job interview. When he drove up to the office building, he found out there was no free parking spaces. He decided to leave his car a bit further from the entrance. Oh no! Even though there were several other vehicles in that place, parking was prohibited there. Luckily, Jordan came up with an idea and didn't get fined. What did he do? He took a parking ticket from another car and put it on his windshield. It looked as if he'd already been fined. Julia took part in a cooking competition. She decided to prepare her favorite muffins. She did her best and the muffins looked great. But when the jury members tried them, they started to pull faces and splutter. It turned out someone had replaced the sugar Julia was going to use with salt. The girl understood she had lost her chance to become the winner, but at least she could figure out who had done it to her. She had 3 other competitors. Wayne told her he hadn't even been there. He forgot to buy several ingredients and did some last-minute shopping. Amber said that she had been preparing the icing for her cake, and Diana told Julia that she'd been very busy with her recipe. It was complicated, and she had to follow it precisely. Very soon, Julia knew who had spoiled her muffins. And have you figured it out? It was Amber. She said she'd been preparing the icing, but her cake was only sprinkled with some powdered sugar. That day, famous chef Christina was going to have some very important guests in her restaurant. She was anxious because her future depended on how they would appreciate her food. Everything had to be perfect. There was only 1 hour left before the guests were supposed to arrive, and that's when Christina discovered someone had left ugly red handprints on her sparkling white jacket. She examined the stains. It was ketchup. Christina knew that some of the cooks didn't like her. She decided to find out who was behind the accident. Look at the cooks and try to help the chef figure out who's guilty. There's a pair of gloves stained with something red in the trash can. The only person who isn't wearing any gloves is the cook on the left. He was the one to spoil Christina's uniform. Nancy was angry with her boyfriend Paul and sent him an email. In it, she told the guy she was going to break up with him. But just an hour after sending the message, the girl found out Paul had done nothing wrong. Now, she needed to delete the email from his computer. The girl knew Paul was at work, so she sneaked into his house. But the computer was protected by a password. Nancy thought the word she needed could be her name. Paul loved her very much after all, but the girl was wrong. And then an idea came to her mind. She typed in a word and this time it was correct. Look at what Nancy saw on the screen and try to figure out the password. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. BRYMPNACB. The password was 67683. These numbers correspond with the letters of Nancy's name. Linda was in a cafe with her boyfriend, and their date wasn't going very well. At some moment, they both got angry and started to argue. Suddenly, their waiter came up to the table and handed something to Linda. It was a note with a strangely written word. Little t, big R, little O, big U, little b, little L, little e, ? Linda was confused. What could it mean? Can you figure it out? The waiter got worried and asked Linda, "Are you in trouble?" Dennis called the police and told them a large sum of money had disappeared from his dorm room. He thought it was one of his neighbors who had done this. The police came and questioned the guy's neighbor. Deborah, a designer, told the officers, "I had to finish an important project. That's why I pulled an all-nighter. When I sent the final version to the client in the morning, I went to bed and only woke up when you came." Aaron, a waiter, said, I've had a very long shift today because one of my colleagues got ill. I haven't seen Dennis since yesterday. And Nathan, a vet, said, I've just come back home. One of my patients called and told me he felt unwell. I had to hurry to the hospital where he was and stay with him. The police officers immediately understood who was lying. And you? It was Nathan who had taken the money. He lied about a patient calling him. He's a vet. Look at these three young ladies. Can you figure out who the cat belongs to? Its owner is the blonde girl. The cat has torn her t-shirt. What does this rebus puzzle mean? M-I-L-1-L-I-O-N. That's 1 in a million. Susan worked as a nurse in a hospital. One day, she came to make injections to 3 patients. After this injection, it was prohibited to get up, and Susan specifically warned the patients to stay in bed. But when the woman came back, she realized one of them had gotten up while she had been away. Who was it, and how did she understand it? It's the guy on the left. His phone is now plugged in, but the outlet is quite far from his bed. John was hungry. He took something, threw away the outside, and cooked the inside. Then he ate the outside and threw away the inside. What snack did he have? An ear of corn. Jason smuggled antiques into the country. This time, it was a beautiful ancient vase. In no time, he found a person who was ready to buy it. As agreed, Jason came to the park. He had a bag with the vase inside. The guy left it on the bench and hid behind the trees. In less than a minute, a bulky man came up to the bench, grabbed the bag, and went away. When Jason approached the bench again, he saw a note. In it, there was a code. Roads and roads. What is the hidden word? Jason needed just a few seconds to realize the word in the note was crossroads. But which crossroad did his client mean? The guy looked around and saw a modern hotel. Its name was Crossroads. Jason headed for the hotel. He told his name to the receptionist and received yet another note. There was just 3 letters, F, B, D. After some thinking, the guy understood what the room number was. Do you know it too? It's room 624. F is the 6th letter of the alphabet, B is the 2nd, and D is the 4th. Jason got to the 6th floor and found the room he needed. The door was indeed open. On the table, there was one more note, hopefully the last one. It had 3 images, a lamp, a bottle of water, and a key. Next to the lamp, there was a downward pointing arrow. Near the bottle, there was an arrow pointing to the left. And to the key, there was an upward pointing arrow. Where is the money? It's under the cushion on the sofa. This cushion is on the right side of the bottle, lower than the lamp, and higher than the key, which is lying on the floor. Emily came to the police station to report her diamond ring stolen. Only me, my husband, and his best friend Larry knew where I kept the ring. My husband has been away on business for 3 weeks. When he left, the ring was still in my jewelry box. It means Larry must have taken it. Detective Richardson visited the man. I know nothing about the ring, and I would never do something like this to my friend. That was when the detective noticed an inconspicuous jewelry box on the shelf over the table. May I have a look? Inside, he saw a diamond ring. This ring was left for me by my great-grandfather. He bought it in Europe decades ago. I even have some papers proving my words. When Detective Richardson looked at the documents, he realized Larry was lying. How did he figure it out? Look at the date. It's February 30th. The documents are fake. How about this rebus puzzle? Let's see how fast you'll crack it. Working time. It means working overtime. Kayla was staying in a hotel in Paris when someone broke into her room and took all her expensive stuff. The police had 3 suspects. Alan said, "I was trying to pour myself some coffee downstairs, but with my arm in a sling, it was so difficult." Mary told the police, "I was at the reception trying to solve some issues with my shower." And Bruce said, "I was sleeping. It was so loud at night I couldn't rest at all." Who broke into Kayla's room? It was Alan. Look at his cast. He's wearing it over his sweater, so it must be fake.
Here's a quick joke. 2 geniuses are walking down the street. One genius says to the other, "Hey, you look down in the dumps. What's the gray matter?" I didn't say it was a good joke. Okay, you big brain person you, here's another challenging quandary of riddles to solve. Ted is a lucky game show winner. He can pick one of the 3 prizes: a brand new Mercedes, a Louis Vuitton purse, or a MacBook. Which one should he choose? Think carefully, he can only get one prize. Look at the Mercedes. Its logo is wrong, so it must be fake. The same goes for the purse. That's what Louis Vuitton's real logo looks like. But the MacBook seems to be okay, at least at first sight. So let's go for it. A car thief appeared in a little town. Every night, a car went missing. First, it was Mr. Smith's red vehicle. The next day, it was Mr. Holmes' pink car. And last night, it was Mrs. Tanner's white Ford. The town's detective is going to stop the criminal. Take a look at the 4 cars that are still out there and help the man understand which car is going to be stolen next. There are 4 cars left: yellow, blue, green, and black. The first car that was stolen was red. The word red has 3 letters. The next one was pink. There are 4 letters in pink. The third vehicle was white, and the word white has 5 letters. It means the next car to be stolen is going to be yellow, because there are 6 letters in this word, as best I can count. Mr. Jones was going on vacation. In the evening of his last day at work, he cleaned up his office and left, taking the key with him. When the man came back 2 weeks later, he immediately realized someone had broken into his office while he had been gone. How did he figure it out? Mr. Jones cleaned everything and took out the trash. But have a look at the garbage can now. There's some paper inside. Esme got lost in the forest. She was wandering around all day long and couldn't find a way out. Finally, at dusk, she saw a spooky house where a witch lived. Esme had nowhere else to go, so she entered the house and asked the witch to help her. The witch offered Esme to play a game. "I'll tell you a riddle. If you get the answer right, I'll take you out of the forest. But if you make a mistake, I'll keep you here as my maid forever." Esme had no choice but to agree. Here's what the witch said. "It has cities, but doesn't have a single house. It has mountains, but not a single tree. It has water, but no fish. What is it?" Can you help Esme? It's a map. Students got an assignment for their summer break. They had to start learning a new language. It could be any language they liked. When a new semester started, the teacher asked the students how it had been going. Mark said he had been learning Brazilian and enjoying it. Genevieve said she'd chosen Ukrainian. Ben said he had been learning Arabic. It turned out to be very hard, but interesting. But the teacher didn't believe one of the students. Who was lying? She didn't believe Mark, who had said he had been studying Brazilian. There's no Brazilian language. People speak Portuguese in Brazil. Oliver came back home and found a love letter in his mailbox. It was a very sweet one, but the sender didn't write their name. However, there was a little note at the end. J+1, B-1, R+2, H-3. Oliver has 4 suspects: Jane, Alex, Leah, and Kate. Can you tell which one of them wrote the love letter to Oliver? The note is the hint, of course, and the alphabet is the key. J+1 means the next letter in the alphabet, which is K. B-1 means one letter before B, which is A. 2 letters after R is T, and finally 3 letters before H, there's E. So, the secret admirer is Kate. Well, a very rich gentleman was having his 3-month vacation. 3 months? His mansion was burgled. The police were notified and the detectives started the investigation. There were 3 people caught on the security camera. They were interrogated. Max, the owner's old friend, said he had come several times to collect the mail. Gwen, the housemaid, said she had visited 3 days before to clean the house. Ronnie, the gardener, said he had been coming every week to take care of the garden. All of them denied stealing anything, but the detective didn't believe one of them. Who was lying? He didn't believe Gwen. She said she'd cleaned the house 3 days before. But look around. There's dust and dark stains everywhere. It doesn't look like it's been cleaned recently, so she must be lying. A long time ago, in Norway, a princess was taken away. She was locked in a small room on a tiny island in the middle of a huge lake. Even if she managed to get out of the room, she wouldn't be able to reach the shore. On the island, there were no trees or any tool she could use. It means she couldn't build a boat. And still, half a year later, the princess managed to escape and returned home all by herself. How did she do it? It happened in Norway. It's cold there in the winter. As soon as the lake froze over, the princess walked on the ice and escaped. Mrs. Brown called the hospital and said her husband had been hurt. When the doctor arrived, she led him to the bathroom. The man was lying on the floor inside. She said the bathroom door had been opened, and she saw everything when it happened. Her husband was washing his hands but slipped and hit his head on the sink. The doctor didn't believe her and called the police. Why? Look at how the man's lying. His head is on the opposite side of the sink. He couldn't have fallen like that. A tired mother of 3 daughters came home late after work. She found the kitchen all messy. It seemed one of her daughters made a sandwich but didn't clean after herself. The mother walked upstairs and found all 3 of them doing their homework. She asked who had made the sandwich, but all the girls, Hannah, Della, and Emily, denied making one. Still, the mother could tell who was lying. Look at the kitchen and the girls carefully. Who do you think is guilty? And how did the mother understand who was lying? There's some butter on the right side of the knife. It means the person who made the sandwich is left-handed. There's only one left-handed girl in the family, and that's Emily. So, it must have been her. All the money from the city's bank was stolen right in the middle of the day, but no one noticed that. Several days later, the room where the money used to be stored was found completely empty. There was just one note saying 7718. The police arrested the three most known criminals in the city, Bill, Mark, and Cole, but the officers didn't know which of them was guilty. They invited a famous detective to crack the mysterious note, and he managed to do it immediately. Can you do it too? Turn the paper upside down. This way, the numbers turn into a name, Bill. He must be the culprit. Now wait. If Bill isn't quite that dumb to name himself, did someone else frame Bill for the robbery? Hey, just thinking out loud here. Moving on. Devian found his friend Aaron in his room. The guy was poisoned. Devian called the police. When the officers arrived, he told them he had been walking past Oliver's house and noticed the light in his room was on. He came up to the window to check who was inside, his friend or his brother. It was cold and there was frost on the window, so he wiped it away to see who was inside. When Devian saw Oliver lying on the floor, he called the police. The officers didn't believe the guy and immediately arrested him. Why? Devian said he'd wiped the frost off the window to see better, but he couldn't possibly do it. Frost forms on the inner surface of the window. Now, let's check how well you know logos. In each pair, you'll have to pick the correct one. What does the Apple logo look like? Try to recall the one on Ted's MacBook. The second logo is correct. Okay, here's Instagram. Do you remember what its icon looks like? Yes, this small dot must be in the right corner, so the first logo is correct. I bet you see it every day. What's the real Google logo? It's the second one. First the red O, then the yellow one. Which one is the correct Burger King logo? Of course, it's the second one. Now I'm hungry. If you play video games, you must know it. If not, well, try yourself. Which PlayStation logo is correct? The second one. Okay, now, a tough one. Which TikTok logo is correct? It's the first one. Check it out if you don't believe me. So, a tired mom came home after work and found that one of her kids had made a sandwich but didn't clean up afterwards. She walked upstairs and found the three of them doing their homework. All of the children, Aaron, Chloe, and Tim, denied making a mess. Still, the mother could tell who was lying. Who do you think is guilty, and how did she understand it? Since there's butter on the right side of the knife, the person who made the sandwich is left-handed. She has only one left-handed kid, and that's Tim. It's a cold fall day. You're at home drinking hot chocolate and watching a movie. Outside, 4 neighboring kids are playing: Lily, Riley, Tom, and Mark. Suddenly, exactly when you turn around, a ball breaks your window and kids run away. You don't know who did it, and no one confessed. Later in the evening, though, you get a note from Lily. She didn't want to give away her friends, but being a very nice and honest girl, she also couldn't keep silent. So she gave you a note with a little hint. In the note, there was just a question mark. Take another look at the note. Can you guess who did it? The question mark is saying it all. Question mark. So Mark must be the one who threw the ball. A king couldn't decide which of his sons he should name his heir. He called his sons and proposed an unusual tournament. The horses would decide. There would be a horse race, and whose horse came last would be named king. When the race started, of course, no one moved. They were standing like this for 3 nights and 3 days, until the race was postponed. The sons were thinking a lot how to solve this problem. The next day, all 3 of them jumped on their horses' backs and raced as fast as they could. But the king never changed the rules. Why did they do that, and what was the solution? The sons decided to switch the horses. Now each was racing fast to make the horse of the brother come first. Right in broad daylight, you find yourself trapped in the dungeon of the world's most famous villains, and you should leave ASAP. Behind the first door, there's Joker waiting for you. The second door will take you straight to Freddy from Five Nights at Freddy's. Behind the third door, there's a Demogorgon from Stranger Things. The choice is yours. I definitely recommend using the second door. Freddy is not dangerous during the day because he only wakes up at night. All of the money from the city's bank was taken in the middle of the day without anybody noticing. The storage room was found completely empty, with only a note lying on the floor. There was a number written on it, 37738. The police arrested 3 of the most known criminals in the city, Belle, Jonas, and Steve, but they didn't know which one was guilty. They invited a detective to crack the hint, and he managed to do it immediately. Can you guess who? If you turn the paper around, the numbers will turn into a name, Belle. Hannah went on a business trip to a nearby city and stayed at a hotel. She was relaxing, reading a book after a long day, when she heard a knock on the door. She opened, asking what happened. The man outside got confused and said, "Oh, sorry for bothering you. I thought it was my room," and left. Hannah didn't believe it was just a mistake and called the security to apprehend the man. Why was she so suspicious? The problem was that the guy had knocked. If he really thought it was his room, he'd try to open it with his keys. A peasant boy was caught in the king's palace. The king was very mad and didn't want to let him go just like that. He loved all kinds of riddles, so he gave the boy a chance to escape. He said the boy could walk out of any of the 3 doors, and if he stayed safe, he was free. Behind the first door, there were lions that hadn't eaten in 3 years. Behind the second door, there were 3 trained assassins. Behind the third door, there was poisonous gas. The boy made his choice and managed to leave. Which door did he walk out of? He used the first door. If lions hadn't eaten in 3 years, they couldn't have survived. They were just skin and bones. A young woman, Julia, drank a spiked tea and left a note. The note was saying, "I just can't live like this anymore, and so I won't. Nobody's guilty." However, the officer didn't think she drank the tea willingly. He suggested that someone had staged everything and made her do it. After a careful analysis, it was confirmed that the note was really written by Julia. Still, the police officer arrested the one who was guilty. There were only 3 people in the house: Julia's boyfriend, Ian, her older sister, Kate, and her lab partner, Mia. Can you guess who's guilty? The first letters of each sentence come together as Ian, her boyfriend's name. He must have made her write a note to make it look like it was her choice, but Julia left a hint for the police. A man fell off the third floor of the building. He was fine, but he lost his memory and couldn't tell what happened. Someone had seen him a while ago washing the windows, and everybody agreed it must have been an accident. However, a detective decided to check if it was true. He walked up to the third floor, opened the window, and threw down a coin. When he returned, he stated that the man didn't fall himself, but somebody pushed him out. How did the detective know? The detective opened the window. It means it had been closed before. If the man had fallen by accident, the window would have remained open. You're locked in a dungeon. There are 3 ways out, but none of them seem safe. Behind the first door, there's a huge and strong guard. Behind the second, there's 3 big and hungry dogs. Behind the third door, there's 2 sharp spinning cogwheels. Which way should you follow to get out and stay safe? The third one. The cogwheels are quite high above the ground, so you can crawl beneath them. You and your friend come back home very late, when everyone is already asleep. Nobody knew that you were outside, and nobody should. There's a code on the door that asks to type in the rest of it. Your friend completely forgot it, but if you don't type it in 10 seconds, it'll start the security alarm. Can you guess what the missing numbers are? The combination is just a set of 2-digit numbers: 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So the other 6 digits are 1, 6, 1, 7, 1, 8 that make the remaining 16, 17, and 18. James is a single father of triplet daughters. He stayed late at work and got a call from a friend who just saw one of his daughters at a party in a different neighborhood. However, the friend couldn't tell which of the daughters it was. When James came home, he asked his daughters who had been at the party. Autumn said she had been doing her homework all evening. Serena said she spent the day outside reading. Emily said she'd been playing Uno. James could tell immediately who was lying. Can you? Emily. She couldn't play Uno alone. She would need a partner for that. You're lost in a deep forest. It's getting dark, and you have to get out immediately, unless you want to spend the night in the woods. Luckily, you come across a little shack where a witch lives. She promises to show you a way out if you solve her riddle. So, here it is. Ava's mom has 3 daughters. The oldest daughter's name is April. The second daughter's name is May. Can you guess what's the name of the youngest daughter? It's Ava's mom, so the last daughter's name is Ava. Stephanie came home after a tiring day at work. She was very excited to finally eat her favorite ice cream after a hot bath. But when she opened the freezer, the ice cream was gone. Stephanie guessed it must have been one of her kids who ate it. She called them and asked, "Who ate my treat?" Michael said, "I just got home and haven't eaten anything yet." Nicole said, "I didn't touch your ice cream." The youngest, Jenny, said, "It wasn't me." Stephanie immediately realized who was lying. Can you guess? It was Nicole. She knew that her mother talked about ice cream, even though Stephanie didn't specify what her treat was.